Well, welcome to another episode of the Residential Developer Podcast. I'm the host. My name's Nathan Battishall, and I want to delve a little bit into my background, into my profession that I've been doing since I was young, and that is looking at the DNA of the perfect development designer. Now, for me, I employ quite a few designers, architects, building designers, drafters. I've been in that space. I've spoken about this before. I knew what I wanted to do at the age of 13, and I ventured out into that space. I've been in and around it for a long, long time, very much geared and niched into high-end and mid-spec development for a long time now. And for me, there is a DNA and there is a culture of getting the right designer or the right design firm or engaging the right designers for your projects. And I think it makes or breaks a development, and it can really set you forward or set you back when you miss that space. And for me, it's very much each year now I'm becoming more and more determined, even in looking at my eye for both developing talent, raising up talent in terms of designers, but also looking for the right people who I want to work with us to service our clients all across New South Wales and a little bit into Queensland. And so for me, there is a DNA that you want to look for in that space. Unfortunately, every week I get projects come across my desk where architects and designers have unfortunately missed the brief in terms of a project. And that's where it's key, because yourself as residential investors, developers, people doing projects and wanting and desiring to do projects, you need to have a core team. You need to have a key team of professionals and experts who are on your side, who are on the same page as you, who are pushing in that same direction and taking your projects forward. And for me, your designer is one of your most key players on your team. They can make or break your team. And unfortunately, I see a lot of people, they make the wrong choices and they go down that path of getting someone who is possibly not a specialist in that particular project type. And for me, there's a lot of DNA traits, and I just want to, for this short episode today, I want to go through some of those DNA traits. And the reason I do this is purely to help you identify and understand that it's not just about engaging a designer or an architect or a building designer for your next project. It's not just about looking at their Instagram of how nice their projects are, or looking at how many followers they've got, or just seeing an ad on Google, or jumping on, these days, people just jump on even ChatGPT and type in, who's the top designers in this area. It's not just about that. It's about really getting an understanding of, does someone get the project that you're looking to achieve, that you're looking to do? What's their experience? What's their background? Have they done these type of projects before? There's so much involved in it. And I just want to go deep down into some of the DNA. And I guess for me, I'm talking about a lot of this because over the years I've hired designers and I've learned from having designers that get some of the DNA traits and some of them that don't get it. And look, not every designer is going to have every DNA trait that I'm going to draw out, and nor should they have every trait. You're never going to get the perfect designer. But for me, I guess that's where, and I've been in that position before where I've been a one-person business and a one-person designer. And look, I know there's advantages of that, but I also understand that it's actually quite limiting. And when you are doing projects, when you're dealing with a one-person designer or a one-person design firm, you're actually constraining yourself to a limited amount of experience, a limited amount of knowledge, and a limited amount of DNA that they may carry to actually push your project forward and carry your project forward. And that's where, I guess, over the years, the last few years of being able to detach myself from the day-to-day of design work, of planning work and that side of it, I'm able to take an eagle-eye view over even what we do. But it's enabled me to put obviously time into my own developments and projects and really drill down and get a strong understanding of what people doing projects and developments need, and what makes a project tick, what makes a project work, what makes a project, most importantly, profitable for our client, who is doing that. And obviously there's different tacks and traits and elements that you look at based on like a completely luxury high-end product versus just like a high-quality mid-spec product. And then you've obviously got the project spec, which I don't delve in. It's not really my space, but there is a place for that also. So for me, here's some DNA traits I just want to draw out that you need to look for in your, and I want to say design firm today. I don't want to say designer, because I think anyone doing projects and developments, you want to be looking for a team in this space. My experience is you don't want to be looking for a one-person show or a very small, tiny team, because it can be limiting, it can be difficult, unless that person has a high level of experience doing their own projects or very closely working with someone who is doing projects. So I guess for me, a couple of key traits it's widely accepted is you need to have a team that's creative. For me, creativity isn't just about creating something that's never been built or creating something that's unique. Creativity is about people who think outside the box, people who are able to look at a site and look at it with creative eyes. Because, see, creativity, not everyone has huge levels of creativity. I think what makes great designers great is the ability to be creative. Now, someone who's creative obviously has a lot of different traits, and creativity can be a blessing and it can sometimes be a curse. And when I say a curse, I don't say it in a bad way. I just mean that often creatives need to have other people around them to help steer other parts of the ship. But you need a team that are creative, because sometimes you need creative solutions to navigate a tricky, challenging site. In particular areas where you've got to create a product that's unique, a product that, especially in luxury and high-end areas, you need creative people. You need people that can think outside the box, people that can be ahead of the trends, people that are able to really look at what is required and then be able to creatively piece that together and master that together. You need people that are creative to be able to see a blank canvas and be able to envision it and look at it. And people that can look at a streetscape, that can look at the area, that can look at the demographic, that can look at all the different pieces that make that site and make that development and can then piece that together. So you need people that are creative, and it's, creativity is a key. And I think, look, all of us have levels of creativity, but I think that's what makes, for me, designers good, is the ability to be creative. Another key trait is you need designers that are on trend. Look, don't get me wrong, there are some designers and they're just known for a particular type of design. And if they're just known for that, that's where they often get engaged. But you've got to understand, you don't often doing developments, you need to find people that are ahead of the trend, people that are understanding the trends, understanding the area, the demographic, who the buyers are, understanding what that market needs, understanding, like I spoke on a previous episode, understanding who the market is, who the buyer is. And when you understand that, they're able to be on point, on trend, understanding that. And look, this day and age, designers that just turn up for work and aren't passionate about what they do, they'll be found out. Because if they're not, like, the best designers are those who live and breathe and love design. So they're reading design magazines during the week. They're looking at real estate. They're driving around. They're spotting properties. That's where often, my wife can't help it. When we drive somewhere, I'm always looking at properties, different facades, different, new properties that are popping up and going up. And often even in our office, we'll talk about, did you see that particular design? And, often you can really tell those who are, really passionate and love design, because they're spotting things, they're seeing things, they're noticing things, they're watching trends emerge, they're watching little things happening, they're on Pinterest, they're looking at trends, they're studying trends, they're all over that space. And I think that's another great DNA trait. And I think another key thing is you need good communicators. Now, I think this is two things. You need you need to deal with designers who are good communicators, but also good listeners. Because it's all well and good to be a great communicator. You could communicate, if you're good at communication, you could push your idea till the cows come home. But if you don't listen, you're not going to capture the vision of that particular site. So you need to be a good communicator because you need to articulate vision. You need to articulate the vision for that site. You need to be able to communicate not only with your client, not only with yourself as the investor, the developer, but you need a designer who's good at communicating across the team, because what makes a great designer is the ability to communicate with the rest of the team around them, whether that be communicating with fellow designers and architects and building designers in collaborating through a design. It's communicating with drafting, with construction drawings, communicating with the builder, communicating with the team that are organising the authorities in the approvals, and then communicating between different consultants, engineering, and all that piece. There's a lot of communication that comes into play. And look, often I find when a designer is not a good communicator, and this is something I tell a lot of our young designers, and I get it. We're in a texting generation. We're in a messaging generation. We're in an emailing generation. Let's face it. A lot of people who are high wealth individuals, a lot of people that don't have the time to be sending 10, 15, 20 emails backward and forward. So I always say, especially the young designers, sometimes you just got to get on the phone. Sometimes you just got to get them in for a meeting, or this day and age, most people like to just jump on a Teams meeting. Don't always email backward and forward, because it's often communication gets lost through emails, and, often the tone of an email can sound quite blunt or quite aggressive when it maybe wasn't meant to be. And by being able to get on a call or face-to-face or in a meeting, like there's a time and a place for emails, there's a time and a place for different forms of communication, but it's understanding who your client is, understanding what their needs are, how they best communicate, how the client best articulates their ideas, their vision, their dreams. And sometimes it's just as easy to jump on a call to counsel, jump on a call to the consultant, jump on a call to the client, jump on a call to the builder, or quickly duck out on site, and you can navigate some of the challenges and some of the problems that arise. Another key thing I think is you need to be working with designers who understand constraints and compliance. I've had this over the years where I've had designers working with me that just continually design things that don't comply. And that can come down to various different things. It can come down to just that ultra creativity where they're not looking at the compliance. Sometimes it comes down to complacency, where they've done something so many times they get complacent, they don't cross-check. That can be a challenge sometimes with creatives, that they don't go back and check, they don't QA. But it can also come down to a lack of QA, and that's where a one-person designer can be difficult, because they don't have someone cross-checking the work. They don't have someone QAing it. They don't have someone possibly more senior or a fresh, I always say just a fresh set of eyes looking over a project and looking at it in that way. Because it's all well and good to have this amazing design, but if it doesn't comply, if it gets a whole bunch of objections, if it pushes you back in council with RFIs after RFIs after RFIs because simple compliances haven't been met, you can run into trouble. And it also causes delays where compliances haven't been factored in or taken into account. And I think another massive one for me, and this is a tricky one because a lot of architects and designers come out of uni and TAFE where they have limited understanding of construction. I think with the cost of construction now, and this is both high-end development, mid-spec, the whole range, that it's becoming more and more vital for designers to understand construction. I've been lucky enough in my life where I've been able to get right around construction and buildability and understanding how things are built, understanding what can be built, understanding all that side of thing. And I look at it often where designers will design things that just can't be built, or things that are just, if they just had a good understanding of construction, they could have saved $10,000 dollars just by looking at being a little bit smarter how they design things and factoring in things like bracing and steelwork and glazing and, looking at spans and looking at all the different elements that make a product buildable, and then looking at things like, being able to fit air conditioning ducting into roof cavities that often get neglected and overlooked, and then looking at areas that are going to cause waterproofing issues and damage, and just looking at little things that come together and cause a product to be more buildable and more affordable, and also cause a product to lack discrepancies and issues on site. And I think it's that ability to be able to read consultants' documentation as well. I think that's a great DNA trait of a great designer, is the ability to be able to look at structurals, be able to look at stormwater, be able to look at thermal assessments, be able to look at all the different reports, have a good understanding of bushfire, have a good understanding of trees, and reading arborist reports and getting a good understanding of how to deal and liaise with civil, and being able to get a good understanding of sewer, building over sewer, building close to sewer, good understanding of all the different traits of liaising and dealing with flood engineering, and a good understanding of, the implications of, retaining, and the implications of basements, and, how to best construct a basement, understanding sheet piling and screw piles, and understanding the different types of flooring systems and the different types of construction methods that can enhance or can, a site. Certain areas demand a high level of construction. Certain areas demand, concrete suspended flooring. Certain areas you will overcapitalise when you go down that space. So it's understanding the different type of methods in construction. And I think that can really kill a designer when they don't understand that type of thing, and they're just as happy to put multiple retaining walls and retain sites rather than setting RLs and thinking about RLs very early in the piece, and putting a builder's hat on, even though they may not be a builder, is learning to get better at it and refine it and understand it and be able to put that thinking hat on. And that's why I always say to people, when I look at your site, I want to look at it as if it was my own, because when you look at it as your own site, and if in this case you're looking to create a product that's going to break a suburb record, or a product that needs to be built for this price to get this sort of return, you've got to look at it through good, strong, creative lens. And that's where I think more than ever we need designers, architects, building designers who get and understand construction. I think another key one is a team player. You don't want someone who's so pig-headed that they will not listen to anyone, that they will continually go down their own tangent. They're only interested in creating their own legacy, or to win design awards, and they've completely cooked your site purely as a result of that they firstly didn't listen, but they're not willing to listen to other team around them, whether that be fellow consultants, whether that be yourself as a client or as a developer or as an investor, whether they're not willing to work with or listen to a builder, or whether they're not willing to listen to their senior, a senior designer, or someone who is giving them guidance. And I think you want a team player, someone who's listening, who's taking on feedback from the agent. If 2 or 3 agents are giving feedback on a product, you need someone who can pack away the ego, pack away that ego, and be able to say, hey, I want the best outcome for my client. I want the best outcome on this project so my client can do extremely well with this property and be able to move forward. So for me, that's a huge DNA trait of a perfect development designer. I think also someone with an eye for detail. Now, they don't have to be someone who is into the detail. Generally, what makes a designer is they don't want to be a drafter. They don't want to be someone who does all the detailed documentation and detailed drawings. But for me, what makes a good designer is someone who still gets detail. Because for me, what makes a sloppy designer at times, I find, is someone who hasn't thought about the detail. They haven't thought about the things that are going to cause issues down the line and down the track. And look, for me, that's what separates the boys from the men, or the ladies from the girls, is someone who doesn't get detail and doesn't understand detail. And they won't think about, the flow of a kitchen to a pantry to a laundry, the flow of when you're cooking and accessing drawers and accessing pantry and food and all those sorts of things, or the flow from an indoor outdoor, or the difference, a little bit of height can make, or looking at where AC ducts are going, or, where vents are going, or all those little things. And I see this, that's for me what separates someone who's a little bit lazy, a little bit sloppy as a designer. They haven't thought about the little details. They haven't thought about, the storage. They haven't thought about the view impacts. They haven't thought about, are you actually going to see those mountains? Are you actually going to see the full extent of the ocean? Are you going to see, because all they're interested in is rushing through a process, rushing through a design, literally pushing it through and getting it ticked off, and they haven't thought about the little things that are going to cause you to have to take a step back and then have to go back into detail and back into that redesign, or a section 4.55 if it's a DA, and having to resubmit an amendment to that DA because little detail hasn't been thought out. And it's not about taking days. Sometimes it's just literally looking at it through that lens of, okay, when this thing is getting ready to be detailed for construction by the drafters, and from a documentation point of view, what am I missing? What are some things that are going to hold this back? What are some things that are going to, cause issues? Little things like, and it's a pet peeve of mine, where things like rainwater tanks, bin storage, all those little things often get neglected at a design point of view, and they haven't been thought about. And then you get to the end and you're like, well, where's the rainwater tank going? And they just throw it in down the side of the property. And it's like, well, how do you fit the lawnmower down past the rainwater tank? How do you fit the bins on bin day back down past that rainwater tank? It's too close to the fence. Or little things like they'll just slap a fold-up clothesline just in some particular area and it's facing south. Or it's like, well, how are you going to hang up the laundry when you've got it literally hitting the wall or hitting the fence? How are you going to make that work? So it's just little things, thinking about the detail. It doesn't mean you have to do the detail, but you have to be constantly looking and thinking and caring about the project that you're partaking in. And that's where a team player comes in, and you're able to think. And at least you don't have to do the detail, but you've got to have the eye for the detail. You've got to be thinking about the detail, the flow, how it works, how is it functional, all those types of things that you're factoring in. And I think another key trait, is someone who's had experience in and around projects, whether that be project managing, whether that be doing their own developments. Maybe they've built their own house a couple of times, or like work or been in that space. In my case, I've done projects, I do projects. So for me, it's very easy to relate to my clients because I'm in that space myself. I know what it's like to be in their shoes. I know what it's like. And I've made heaps of mistakes in my own developments that enable me to be ahead of the space and ahead of the game in terms of other people in that space because I'm in that world. And I think that's another key. It's not the only thing, but it's another DNA trait I think that help you engage and get and work with someone who will take your project forward. And I think a collaborator is a key as well. And obviously we spoke about being a team player, but also someone who's world-class at collaboration. Because for me, not being insecure is such a big key, because I've worked with designers that are insecure, where they don't want to elevate others and they don't want others to get better than them, get better than them and be better than them, because there's that fear of what if someone's a better designer, or what if someone creates a better layout or a better design. And for me, I constantly want to surround myself with designers, architects, building designers, and people who are secure enough to not have to be the best. Now, I want people to be the best they can be, but I love the fact when you're in a team and you're working with collaborators who just want to see a project win. It's not all about them only elevating their own self, and it's just something I resent and I refuse to want in my business, is someone who's just purely in it for themselves. They're not in it for being part of a team. They're not in it for their client, but they just want to do better. They want to be better at what they do, but they also want to help others around them become better. And I just think that's a key, because when you've got collaborators, you bring ideas to the table, but you're able to tap into ideas. I love when I look at our team and where sometimes you could have two or three designers just leaning it over the computer, helping another designer. It may not be that idea was bad. It was just that, hey, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this idea? Have you thought about this layout or this facade? And I love when you see people just humble themselves and realize, hey, I'm tapping into 20, 30, 40, 50 years worth of design experience sometimes around a table or around a computer, and realizing you don't have to have all the ideas. But when you work with a team, that's the beauty of working with a team and not with just an individual designer, is you get collaboration, you get ideas. That's where the juices flow, is where questions come, ideas come, challenges come, where a designer will challenge another designer, and those ideas come, and it creates this melting pot of amazing creativity, amazing experience. And some people bring a lot more construction knowledge to the table. Some people bring a lot more creativity to the table. Some people bring this ability just to bring both to the table. Some people bring strong knowledge of doing developments, and other people bring strong knowledge of compliance. And you get that melting pot of ideas that just create this world-class collaborative culture that enables your project to advance and move forward, but also be profitable. We obviously spoke about being a good listener. You need to be someone who can listen to your client, listen to people around you, because when you listen, you absorb, and that's how you capture someone's vision for a project, is when you listen. Like for me, when I'd have my initial design meetings with clients, and I don't do a lot of that these days. My team do that, but I'm always, in my mind, you should spend at least 50 to 60% of that meeting listening. The other 20% of that meeting, you should be asking questions. So you should be asking questions and then listening, asking questions and then listening, asking questions and then listening. And you'll spend the last little percentage of that meeting giving ideas, giving advice. Now, it's not about not giving advice and not giving ideas, but too many people spend so much time talking that you overrun someone's vision for the project. You overrun their idea, you overrun what they're wanting to achieve and what they're wanting to do. And when you ask good quality questions, you can draw out the absolute gold from that project. And I always say the best listeners and the best question askers are the ones who very rarely need to do rework when it comes to preparing concept designs and design development drawings, because they've been able to capture the vision, they've been able to really absorb that vision and then put it into reality by producing a design that comes before the client. Probably the last couple is someone who's well connected. I think you want to work with people who are well connected with agents, well connected with construction, well connected in the industry, well connected in terms of product knowledge, well connected in terms of developments, projects, all that sort of thing. Because when you work with those type of people, they're constantly learning, constantly growing, constantly listening to what's working, what's not worked. And they're really well connected, like with councils, with town planners, with all those types of things. You want people that are connected in the space of what you're looking to achieve. And I think the last one is just someone who's passionate about design and property and projects. You want someone who's passionate and a team who's passionate, because when they're passionate, they live and breathe it, they understand it, they're all over it. And for me, someone who's passionate about design is one thing, but if you can get someone and a team who's passionate about both design and property/development, you have a DNA and a recipe for explosive projects, because they not only get it from a design point of view and producing something incredible and amazing that's on point, but if they get and they're passionate about property, they will be able to look at FISOs, think about FISOs, they're thinking about construction costs, they're thinking about what that product needs, what that area needs, they're thinking about what's in that area, what's broken records in that area, and all that sort of thing. That all comes together to have a world-class system of producing wonderful design. So look, I hope you enjoyed this episode. It's just something in your repertoire to understand when you're engaging people. And look, this goes down to not just designers, but planners and all that sort of thing too. So look, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you next week.